So I just wanted to thank you guys for joining us today for the What to Know Before You Go to Capitol Hill webinar. Just looking at the participant list, I see a lot of familiar faces. So thank you guys for participating once again in our virtual Hill Day. Today we'll take you through just the basics of what you need to know, like what Hill Day is all about, the basics about how to access your schedule, and some other advocacy tips before your meetings next week. I'm Tess Hembry. I'm Director of Legislative Affairs for NAHRO, and I'm joined by Jenna Hampton, who's our Legislative Affairs Analyst. And I'm also joined by Lincoln Clapper, who is the Chief Sales Officer at Advocacy Associates, who's responsible for scheduling all your meetings. Let's dive right into it. What is Virtual Hill Day? If you never participated before but have participated in our in-person conferences pre-pandemic, this is basically the virtual version of going to Capitol Hill. This is your opportunity to meet with members of Congress via Zoom or via conference call. It's a really important opportunity to connect with Washington, D.C.-based legislators and staff who dive into housing policy issues all the time on Capitol Hill and really do need to know a lot about what's going on in your communities. It's an opportunity for you to highlight affordable housing and community development priorities in your communities. And most importantly, it's your opportunity to tell the story of what it is that you've experienced in the last year, the housing issues that you guys have in your communities, and the experiences you have being housers in the states and districts. First off, how do you schedule your meetings for Virtual Hill Day? You don't. Advocacy Associates has done that for you, and Lincoln will talk you through how to access your schedule and see when your meetings are in just a moment. We took your address based on your registration to look up your constituency. So we matched you with your member of Congress, your representative, and your 2 senators based on that address and requested meetings with those offices. We do this for a couple of reasons. One, to make sure that everybody from the same state and district meet with offices together. For example, like Senator Cornyn doesn't need to meet with 17 different NAHRO meetings or groups throughout the day. Want to make sure you guys are all bunched together and can talk about NAHRO priorities as one solid group. And it allows us at NAHRO to take a look at what meetings are being scheduled and follow up with you guys after the meetings or throughout the year if we've got issues or things that we need to connect with the offices about. It's really helpful for us in our work in DC as we work with offices throughout the year. So we take care of scheduling meetings for you. Lincoln will talk about how to access that in just a second. Just a couple of notes about some of the sessions throughout the Washington conference that would be really helpful for you guys to watch prior to your meetings. So we've got Monday and Tuesday of conference content, and then Wednesday is going to be the virtual Hill Day. On Monday, I'd suggest you make sure that you watch the opening plenary with Peggy Bailey from HUD and Amy Walter from the Cook Political Report. Especially Peggy Bailey will be talking about a lot of the priorities that HUD has in the upcoming year. The president's fiscal year 23 budget proposal is supposed to be coming out on Monday. So I suspect that a lot of her address will be focused on that, and that's going to be really helpful for you guys in your meetings. Additionally, there's the plenary session, the Washington Report, from 2:45 to 4:30 on Monday afternoon. And that's your opportunity to hear from myself and Jenna and our amazing policy team to talk about the most important things that are happening in DC and just give you a really up-to-date look at what Congress is dealing with right now. On Tuesday, we're going to have a special congressional staff panel during the opening plenary at 12:15. That's an opportunity to hear from committee staff who are responsible for writing the appropriations bills and for writing housing policy through the Financial Services and Banking Committee, talk about some of the work that they're going to be doing. Just another perspective about Congress and what's happening up there right now. Another concurrent session that might be interesting is the Why of Advocacy, how to uplift your community story. It's just about how to frame the stories and the experiences that you have in your community in a way that will resonate on Capitol Hill and help you tell the story about why housing is so critical. And then finally, we'll hear from a pretty long list of members of Congress at 2:45 p.m., including our legislators of the year. And then Wednesday on March 31st will be your virtual Hill meetings. So those will happen at various times at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. local, depending on the availability of your congressional staff. And to talk a little bit more about how to access those meetings and how to use the Advocacy Associates website is Lincoln Clapper. Lincoln, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Tess. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lincoln Clapper. I'm part of the Advocacy Associates team here in DC, and I just want to spend a few minutes walking you all through how to access your schedules, how to navigate your online portal ahead of next week, and some of the features that go along with that. For those of you that did this event last year, a lot of this will look pretty familiar, but we have made a few changes, so we wanted to spend some time, again, just to make sure everyone's on the same page ahead of next week. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get started here. Now, you all will be getting an email from us later today by end of day. And if you're watching this as a recording, today is March 23rd. So just keep an eye out for that in your email. It'll come from advocacyday@advocacyassociates.com. If you don't get it by, say, end of day today, check your spam or junk folder. It's probably sitting there. If you do find it there, please unmark it as spam, as this is going to be our main way of communicating with you in terms of time changes, scheduling updates, cancellations, additions. All of that's going to come through over email. So we want to make sure you're getting that correspondence. Now, in order to access your schedule, it's basically a two-step process. So there's going to be a link in the upper right-hand corner, which will take you to your login page. And that's where you're going to need your login credentials. And you'll see that in the middle part of your email here. Your username is going to be your email address, and then there will be a temporary password that will be generated for you by our system for you to utilize. And you're going to need those credentials, as I mentioned. So when you click on that link to go to your login page, you're going to be prompted to enter in those credentials in a field that'll look like this. So you're going to put your email address in the email field, that temporary password in the password field, click sign in. Then you'll be prompted to change your password. That temporary password to your own password. So once you've met all the requirements there, click the send button, and then you'll be launched into your schedule. If you're accessing your schedule from the device that you plan on taking these meetings from next week, this will be the only time you need to do this login process, because it will keep you logged in automatically. Every time you revisit the site, you will remain logged in. So if you plan on accessing your schedule from your computer or laptop or whatever you're using ahead of next week, this will be the only time you'll need to log in. Now, if at some point you become logged out, either by accident, or you log yourself out, or you're trying to access from a different device and you forgot your password, you can easily reset it. There will be a forgot password link there. Just follow the directions. It'll be like any other forgot password reset process you've ever done online. Now, if you're still having any technical issues at that point, you can contact us. There will be a contact link in that initial email. This will go directly to our development team, and they'll reach out to you if you're having any technical problems logging into your schedule. Once you're logged in, all of your confirmed meetings will be displayed with a time. That's how you'll know they're confirmed. Anything that's still pending on your schedule will show as TBD. That just means we're still working on a time with that office. We may be having to rearrange a few things. Either way, you will get a notification email about that when these meetings do become confirmed on your schedule. So you will be very much in the loop over the next week or so as these get slotted into your schedule. Now, a new change we have this year is all times will have a time zone next to them, and this will automatically adjust based on the time zone you're located in. So you will not need to do any time conversions. It will automatically adjust based to your location. So it'll make it really easy to plan your day out. Now, in order to get the information for each meeting, just click on any part of the module there. It'll launch you into that specific meeting dashboard. You'll see the time and date again at the top, followed by who you're actually speaking with in the office, whether it's the staff, member of Congress, or both. If there's been a meeting lead assigned to your meeting by the government affairs team, you'll see that person or person's name displayed here. If not, then this area is going to be blank. In order to access the video component for your meeting, click the green Join Online Meeting button. I would say expect to engage with the Zoom platform 99% of the time. There's a few offices that use WebEx or Teams, etc. Same concept applies. Just click the button. It'll open up whatever dashboard is necessary. In addition to that, there's a few offices that will only do audio. They do not have video access, just based on their own security preferences. So in those instances, you will see a disclaimer on the button letting you know that it's an audio only meeting. Now, if you cannot access via video, you can of course dial in as well. There will be directions in this area here to access via dial-in. So just enter that number, enter the access code when prompted, and you'll be launched in via dial-in. All of your talking points will be displayed in the talking points module here, followed by all of your documents in the documents module here. If you click on each document, it'll open up in a separate tab for you. So it will not close you out of your schedule. It'll just open up in a separate tab, which will allow you to toggle back and forth between your schedule, your documents, and your Zoom platform. The attendees section will show all the attendees who are going to be in that meeting. There may also be some relevant contact information there for you to reach out to each other outside of the platform. You can hide or display this information by going to your name in the upper right-hand corner, click the privacy tab, and then you can hide or display that information as you see fit. You can also contact each other through our peer-to-peer chat function. This is basically a private messaging chat system between you and other advocates in the portal. If somebody does send a message to you through this mechanism, you actually will get a notification about that from the platform as well. On the left-hand side is our report form area. The first one is the check-in feature. Basically, this is an attendance report that we take. So please check that button either before or after your meeting concludes, letting us know that you checked in and were present, because we'll be sending those results to the government affairs team after your event, and we want to be able to highlight that you were present for these meetings. Beneath that will be an ability for you to send a thank you email to the office once the meeting concludes. This is a pre-written script that's been crafted for you. It will also automatically pull the staffer's email for who you met with as well, so you'll have that contact information handy. You can open this in one of two ways. Click that blue open email button at the top, which will pull up whatever native platform is on your device. So for me, I have Microsoft Outlook. If I were to click that button, it would pull up a Microsoft Outlook email for me to send. If you're using Gmail or Yahoo or something web-based, you can copy all this information with those 3 copy clipboard buttons beneath it, and then paste it into the email client of your choice. Beneath that will be a meeting report form. This is a list of specific questions for you to answer for each meeting. So please go through, answer those. When you get to the bottom, you'll see a submit button. And again, you'll do this for each meeting on your schedule. Beneath that is a take notes feature. This is basically a blank notepad that allows you to take freehand style notes rather than using a pen or paper. Just a nice way to sort of keep everything in one place rather than having to transcribe back and forth. Beneath that is an option to select if the member of Congress attended or if only staff attended. This is an important data point that we can only get from you because you are the attendees in that meeting. So please mark one of those options as well. For those of you that have done this event before, you know the meeting may be scheduled with a member of Congress, but they get pulled away to votes, or they're stuck at a committee hearing and they can't make it. Again, just very helpful from a debrief perspective. So please mark one of those options as well. And for you social media fans, you'll be able to access your Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn through the portal if you'd like to drop a post on any of those platforms. Click on the meetings tab to take you back to the home page, and you can navigate your way to that next meeting on your schedule. The legislators tab will take you to an area where you can view bios for everyone you're meeting with, such as this. It'll also include links to their social media pages if you'd like to explore those further. Within each member's profile will also be a bills tab. So if you're tracking any particular bills for your event, you'll see that listed here, along with that member's vote history on the bill at the bottom, if it has been voted on. If you aren't tracking any bills for this event, this area is going to be blank. News will pull any relevant news articles they've been mentioned in. You can read about them online. And the committees tab will show all the committee assignments that they serve on. The messages tab is an area where you can view those direct peer-to-peer messages between yourself and other advocates. The directory is a master directory of everyone in the event, so you can contact people outside of your meetings. And the support tab will be your best friend for anything and everything support, whether it's scheduling support, technical support, you can't make a meeting anymore, which we absolutely need to know about. All of that needs to run through support, and this really will be the fastest, most efficient way to get any question resolved. The More tab is basically a drop-down menu of all the content I've already reviewed. There may be some additional materials in there that your organization has provided, so make sure to take a look at that once you get logged into your schedule. Okay, last slide here. So again, check your spam or junk folder. If, say, by end of day today, you haven't gotten that email from us, our domain is @advocacyassociates.com if you need to search for that. We're asking everybody to call or get into the video portion of their meeting 10 minutes prior to the start time on your schedule. This really will allow you just to touch base with the other attendees in your group about roles, and also just to make sure everyone's present when the office joins. That way the meeting can start right on time. All times on your schedule are going to be shown in the time zone you're located in when viewing it, so you will not need to do any time conversions. You're going to get a reminder email from us 1 hour prior to each meeting throughout the course of the event. This will also include a link to your schedule in it, which will make it really easy to get in and out of your portal throughout the course of the day. If the office doesn't join your meeting within 10 minutes past the start time, please let us know. There will be a help number and the support tab for you to call for a time-sensitive issue like that. These meetings may go anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, so just prepare your talking points accordingly. Any changes to your schedule is going to come through over email. So again, make sure you're really monitoring that closely throughout the day. Make sure you are in an area with good Wi-Fi connection, as again, most, if not all of your meetings will have a video component to them. Please mute your microphone whenever you are not speaking. And lastly, just know your audience. Ensure you have an appropriate background as you'll be speaking with both Republicans and Democrats throughout the course of the day. So that being said, very much looking forward to next week, and I'll turn it back over to Tess from here if there's any questions we want to go through in the chat.
Great, thanks. And before we let Lincoln go, does anybody have any questions about any of that we can address? Leave it open for just a second. If you've got any, put it in the chat or the Q&A box. We're monitoring that. All right, looks like you did a great job of summing everything up. Thank you so much, Lincoln. I really appreciate your help.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, let's get my presentation back up. Let's see, right here. Okay, so diving back in, I just wanted to thank you guys too, before we dive into some advocacy tips for participating in Hill Day. We know you guys have a really busy day, you're over capacity at your agencies, and you have a lot of other things you could be doing on next Wednesday, and the fact that you're taking the time to talk to your members of Congress is a really big deal, and we really appreciate it. The work that you guys do with your members of Congress really resonates in DC. When Jen and I meet with offices throughout the year, we frequently hear, oh yeah, we just met with so-and-so from the Housing Authority. We've heard that issue. We know you need funding. We know the capital fund is an issue. So yeah, the work that you guys do at these meetings really does make a really, really big difference. So thank you guys. So why you're participating, just a couple of notes about advocacy. So actions taken to promote more informed decision making at the federal, state, and local levels. So it's making sure that your members of Congress really do understand the work that you do administering those HUD programs. Those are complicated programs, and the information that you guys give them helps humanize and helps them understand what it is that happens on the ground, what changes need to be made, and most importantly, what kind of funding you need. And it also just gives them a better role in general of the housing and community development programs in their communities, just so that they really do see the impact that you guys have with the federal dollars that they're allocating. So there's two types of advocacy that we'll be focusing on. One is ongoing, year-round, and mission-driven. So some of the things we're talking about, like the $70 billion for the capital fund backlog, that's more of a mission-driven advocacy campaign versus something that's a little bit more issue or event specific, like fiscal year 23 appropriations. What we'll be doing next week is a blend between mission driven and issue specific. So it's really good that you get a background in both our general asks, but then specifically what we're looking for as appropriation season gears up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jenna, who's going to walk you through a little bit more with advocacy tips and some things that we'll be talking about this year. Jenna?
Thanks, Tess. Hey, everyone. So a few of these things Lincoln already covered, but I'm just going to talk about a few points for preparing for your meeting. So a lot of your meetings will be on camera this year on Zoom. So just make sure that you're prepared to be on camera if that's what the office is wanting you to do. So just make sure you have a good background, that you have good Wi-Fi connection so that you're not going in and out, kind of what Lincoln was saying. Also log in about 5 to 10 minutes early, as he mentioned, so you can test out your video and your microphone. And also you're going to want to coordinate with the rest of the participants in your group, especially for the Senate meetings. You'll have everyone in the state who's participating in Hill Day. So you will, my apologies, someone came into the office when I was trying to present. But essentially you will want to log in early and also introduce everyone who's on the call. And you'll want to prepare who's speaking when. So a lot of these meetings are short. They might wrap up in about 15 minutes or so. So you'll want to make sure that you are getting through all your talking points and that people aren't speaking over each other in the meeting. Go ahead, Tess, with the next slide. So a few other points on preparing your readings, preparing for your meetings. You want to have an agenda, like I said, and go through some talking points with everybody else on the meeting. I would say this is less important for your representative meetings because you may have fewer people on the call, or it may only be you, the staff member, and maybe one other person. But especially for the Senate meetings, you want to have a list of the top talking points that you want to make sure that you cover, again, because these meetings are short, and that'll ensure that you have enough time to get through all your talking points. You can even assign roles in your group, especially if you have a larger group, you want someone to lead the group, and other people, maybe based on what they would like to talk about, assign roles of who's going to cover what. But you don't have to try and cover too much, just maybe give them a few main points that you want them to remember. A couple other things that we were going to share is a lot of you will be meeting with staff members. Some of you will have your Congress members on the call, but just remember that staff members and even members of Congress most likely will not be experts on your programs. They are familiar usually with some of the basics that you all do, some of the programs you run, but I would say try to avoid any kind of jargon or acronyms. If you can just spell out everything really clearly from them of what you're talking about and what you're asking them to do or to fund, that's really helpful. It's really easy for them to just get bogged down in too much information if that's what you're sharing with them. So it's usually best practice to just be clear and concise and spell out exactly what you're asking from them. And so yeah, someone's asking in the chat now about NAHRO materials. So we have provided Hill Day talking points, and we'll also have by the end of this week our 2022 legislative and regulatory agenda. So those are two items that you can provide to the meetings. Lincoln was showing how you can send a follow-up email. So you should be able to attach those items there, or when you're on the call, you can ask for the staff members' email so you can send them follow-up materials. That's really good to do just to make sure that you're following up with the office and that you're providing them materials that they can look back on, in addition to the notes that they have from the meeting. You can get that kind of information from your agency too, as well, if you'd like to maybe send them your website for your agency, or if you have any kind of informational materials that would be useful for them to have, that's something that folks do as well. And then also remember to include some personal information about what's happening in your state and district. Obviously, they care most about the states and districts that they represent, so they want to know what's happening on the ground in the areas that they're representing. So just make that personal. They really want to hear stories about what you all are doing, especially with the past couple of years being through the pandemic and some hard times. They want to get to know you and figure out what you all have been doing. So next slide, Tess. Yeah, just one quick point here. which Lincoln shared as well. If you can just do some prep work on who you're talking to. So if you're not familiar with your members of Congress and your senators, I would say just pick some ways that you can get to know them. So some suggestions include just visiting their websites. Every member of Congress has a website that's designated to them that talks about the committees that they're part of, the legislation that they file, anything you want to know about them, their bio. They also post a lot of updated information on their social media pages. So they often comment on what's happening in the news, and some more updated information you can find on their Twitter accounts or Facebook. You can go to congress.gov and look up the legislation they filed. And honestly, just Googling your members of Congress and reading up on them is helpful. I would say the two most important things to know if you're doing this background research is what their political ideology is. So of course you have Republicans and Democrats, but kind of where they fall on that spectrum, because that may help you tailor your message to them. Some of them are not as open to funding government programs, or some of them think that we should fund government programs more. So when you're asking for funding, for example, you may want to tailor that message to what that member of Congress's ideology is around funding and politics, and obviously still be strong in your asks for whatever you're asking for, but just be mindful of where your member may fall on the political spectrum. And also get an idea on if they've worked on anything with housing. So if there's bills that you've been following or that NAHRO's been following, maybe try and find out if they've co-sponsored that legislation, or even if they're sponsoring that legislation, because that may be something worth talking about in the meeting. The next slide. Like I said, that most of you will be talking to staff members. You may be talking to a staff member and a member of Congress, but most likely you'll be talking with a staff member. Definitely make sure you thank them for their time. A lot of them are on phone calls all day with people, with constituents, and so it can be a lot. So just definitely thank them for their time, and like I said, try and be as clear and concise as you can. It is really advantageous to be speaking to a staff member, because they often are the ones that are spending a lot of time looking at policy issues for their member. They're the ones that are tasked with following legislation and making sure that they're hearing your comments and incorporating those into what your member is doing on the Hill. So it can be nice to talk to a member of Congress, but also it's really useful to talk to staff and try and get your priorities over to them so that they remember those and incorporate those. And then just a reminder that a lot of them are young. They may have only been on the Hill for a few years, so you may need to just explain some of your programs to them, and just be patient with them as well. And then we'll just fly through. We've got the next slide is a reminder that we will have the 2022 legislative and regulatory agenda out by the end of the week. The image up there is the one that we had for last year, but that's our longer form document with all of NAHRO's leadership approved policy priorities and our funding chart for next year. The funding chart will include the fiscal year 2023 recommendations that we have. Then next slide. These are our policy priorities that'll be included and expanded upon in the legislative and regulatory agenda, but essentially the things that we've been pushing for a long time is NAHRO, preserving and developing housing, expanding access to housing for low-income families, protecting flexibilities for housing and community development agencies. So trying to get those regulatory flexibilities that make it easier for you all to do your jobs and meet community needs, and then promoting timely appropriations. So even the appropriations process this past year was very delayed, and we had a lot of continuing resolutions. So just reminding members of Congress that having appropriations come through regular order and being timely helps you to manage your programs with more predictability. Then just a couple more slides. This is what the funding chart looks like, and we'll have the updated one in our legislative and regulatory agenda, like I mentioned. And then next slide is our Hill Day talking points. So that came out yesterday and is on the NAHRO website. And I will include a link to that in the chat, but you can find that on the Hill Day page of the NAHRO website. And it'll also be in your conference agenda that you will have access to later next week too. The next slide. Yeah, so this is what the Hill Day resource page looks like. So a lot of the materials that I just presented to you all are located on this page. We'll have a recording of this webinar on that page as well. So it's just, if you go to events on the NAHRO website and go to Washington Conference, you'll find the Hill Day page with all of the resources that I just shared. And I think that's it.
Jenna. And we will stay on the line for just a minute to take your questions. But I do want to recommend that everybody watch the Washington Report session that's on Monday afternoon. That is where we really will frame a lot of what's in the legislative and regulatory agenda and what's happening on Capitol Hill and with HUD in a way that you guys can take to the offices. So on top of that, we're anticipating the president's fiscal year 23 budget proposal to come sometime on Monday. So we'll do our best to incorporate that request as well into what it is we're presenting you. But the timing this year was just really tough, basically with everything trying to get the materials together. The reason why you don't have the legislative and regulatory agenda yet either is because of the lateness of fiscal year 22. So yeah, just make sure that you're tuning into the sessions beforehand. I know that a number of states have been meeting as a group, and please feel free to contact me with any questions you have about linking up with other people in your states. And if you have individual questions about how to frame your ask, how to frame a story or something you want to communicate to the offices, please get in contact with us. We're here for you. We're here to help you. So just let us know what we can do to make your meeting successful. And then on top of that, if you're new to advocacy, you're signed up for a meeting and you realize that like you're the only person in your representative meeting, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to go to meetings with you if you want a buddy with you. So just please let us know and we can accommodate that as best we can based on our schedules. So just wanted to thank you guys again for participating. This is probably the most important thing that happens throughout the year from our perspective. And you guys really are the voices of your community and your offices listen and remember these meetings. So thank you again for participating and we're looking forward to seeing you next week at NAHRO's online legislative conference. Thanks everybody.